The steering committee of the opposition New Patriotic Party has instructed the various vetting committees to ensure that eligibility and competence of all aspirants are duly observed according to the party's constitution. This follows the meeting called at the behest of the Vice Chairman Freddie Blay in the absence of the Chairman Paul Afoko.
What we did was constitutional. We took steps not outside the constitution. So I don't see where it's not a question of asking one person's consent before a meeting is organized.
But there have been questions over why such an important meeting will be called in the absence of the chairman and whether indeed the widely held perception of a split in the party's front is real or just perceived. Is the NPP overwhelmed by its own internal wrangling, or it's just a small issue blown out of proportion? This is today's big story with me, Stephen Enti. Now, there are those who say the NPP split along the lines of Afoko, Ejapong and the rest. A steering committee meeting called by Vice Chairman Freddie Blay today sent tongues wagging. According to NPP sources, a steering committee meeting usually attended by elected national officers should normally be called at least once a week by the chairman who is mandated to chair it. Now, the last time a steering committee meeting was called was about 2 months ago, and this has not gone down well at all with the majority of members. Well, today the steering committee met. But what is odd is that it was called by Vice Chairman Freddie Blay in the absence of Chairman Paul Afoko. Our man Kwachi Afre Nuyama spoke to Freddie Blay after the meeting.
We can organize a meeting in accordance with the Constitution. The steps that we are taking, if they are legitimate, if they are constitutional, they are good steps.
But couldn't they have been consulted before the meeting was held?
You wouldn't know whether we consulted. Yes.
I spoke to Mr. Japon a while ago. He says he knows nothing about this meeting.
Please, I am saying that you've spoken to him. You are speaking to me. I said he was aware of this meeting. I even wrote to him to ask him to organize this meeting.
But we understand. Yes. Information we are picking up is that the national chairman, Mr. Paul Afoko, who is not in the country anyway, had slated another meeting for Thursday after the parliament.
This one is an emergency meeting. So slating some meeting for the 12th, it doesn't make any difference. The meeting will come on all the same. It makes no difference. This is an emergency meeting, and we are about to issue a statement on that. It reflects on the ongoing primaries and what we are supposed to be doing. And we considered it extremely important to have an emergency meeting to do that.
Is it because we're not able to have your vetting today?
I don't know. Come again.
I mean, what triggered the emergency meeting? Is it because as a result of your inability?
That's not the case.
Today?
What triggered the emergency meeting?
Well, the emergency meeting is not today. It's been, we have asked earlier on that there were a few issues that we needed to consider. Who is supervising, who is in charge here, and the steering committee had not had the opportunity to be briefed properly on that. That's why we considered there was a need for an emergency meeting.
There's a certain history to all this stuff.
Hold on. Let me finish first. So the chairman was not around. They couldn't have the emergency meeting before he left. The Constitution allowed the meeting to be organized in his absence, and we did that. That's what was attended. Supposed to be a quorum for the meeting is supposed to be 7 members. We have 9 people attending this meeting. Very interesting and good decision have been taken for and on behalf of the party. That's what has been done.
But what could have triggered such a meeting? Couldn't it have
saying emergency? Look, not tomorrow. Today we had it today because we've already started. We've already indicated that from today, tomorrow, or the next day, certain things are being done. That is, vettings are taking place in various sectors. So there is a need maybe to have this meeting so that a few things that we think ought to be done in addition to what has been put in place should happen. That's exactly what we had this meeting for.
And we are picking up information again.
And
all this is
speculative.
Mr. Freddie Blay,
yes.
Freddie Blay, all this talk and discussion about some division in the party is coming on the back of happenings.
I'm glad you said they are speculative.
Happenings over the past month. At Otiko, Afisa Jaba was not here, Kwame Japan was not here, the national chairman himself was not here.
Yes.
Doesn't this point further to deepening cracks in the steering committee?
We all need not be present. Sometimes it's good, perfect. It's ideal for them all to be here. But if 1 or 2 or 3 have traveled and the meeting can take place, why not?
Really, what's the big deal about a meeting without the chairman? Should this be interpreted to mean a split in the party? We're joined on the telephone line now by Dr. Alidu Seidu, who is a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana. Also, we have on the other telephone line Freddie Blay, who is first vice chairman of the New Patriotic Party. Gentlemen, we're grateful to have you on the line. Let me start with you, Dr. Alidu Seidu. Paul Afoko and Kwabena Japan have been accused a couple of times for taking unilateral decisions without recourse to the party's top hierarchy. Do you see this becoming a problem for the party?
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. I think the NPP as a party elected all this number of executives in their national delegates conference because they believe each one of them is crucial for the party's success and for achieving the aim of electoral victory 2016 and beyond.
That's right.
So it stands to reason that if each member of the executive membership is very crucial, then it suggests that decision making must be participatory, consensus based, and in a dialogue form. So if it was alleged that the national chairman and the national secretary were taking decisions without consulting other members of the steering committee or the executive committee, that was wrong, and it had an implication on the cohesion and unity of the party as a team.
Right.
But what happened today too, if indeed it occurred without the knowledge of the national secretary and the national chairman, then they are just repeating the mistake that the two guys were committing. If indeed that was what they believed was a mistake, they're just repeating the same mistake. And that will not augur well for the unity of the party going forward.
Right, Dr.
There's one thing between what is constitutionally right, what is constitutionally permissible, and what is right as a procedure in a political institution like the NPP. So even if the constitution allowed them, the first vice, if the constitution allowed Mr. Freddie Blay to even convene such a meeting, it should have been done with the consultation of the secretary and the chairman.
Right, Dr. Alidu said, I'll hold you briefly. I beg your pardon, because Mr. Freddie Blay is on the line. I think it's fair for us to put some of the questions to him as vice chairman of the party. Mr. Blay, we are grateful to have you on today's Big Story.
Thank you.
Now, your party held the steering committee meeting without Paul Afoko, the chairman, and Kwabena Japan. There are those who say that their mere absence from this steering committee meeting, which is a crucial meeting for the party, suggests some level of cracks at the front of the party. Do you feel so?
That can be right. Unless, of course, you don't know, you can't come to that conclusion only when you don't know what happened. Definitely, Mr. Afoko was not in town. He traveled outside the country. And therefore, you can't organize any meeting with his participation. He will have definitely been around to chair it. Now, Kwabena was informed. He was in Nkoranza having a funeral arrangement or having the funeral rites performed for his mother-in-law, father-in-law, we are told. He couldn't. I informed him by WhatsApp. He says he couldn't make it. But definitely, the meeting took place with his knowledge that such a meeting was going to take place.
So,
although, of course,
Mr. Blay, let me barge in a bit. Did Kwabena Japan agree to attend or not? I mean, as General Secretary of the party, no matter where he is, he should be able to attend the party meeting as important as a steering committee meeting.
That's very good. He indicated that he will not be able to attend. That's what he said.
And no reasons were given except to say that he was in an... Right. Yes. Now, the information we have picked is that because of some level of animosity between top members of the party, when the meeting was called, the emergency meeting, steering committee meeting was called, Mr. Japan only heard about the meeting via a telephone call placed to him, and he expressed surprise at this emergency meeing at which he was invited by telephone. Was he invited via telephone only or through a letter?
He was invited by an SMS text and WhatsApp.
Is that not strange that a leading member of the party will be invited to an important meeting like that by SMS, by WhatsApp message?
All members are invited by SMS. That has been the usual mode of invitation.
And the women's organizer Otiko Jaba also didn't attend. That's a surprising too. Was she also at a funeral?
No, I think when he was contacted by a telephone, he says he was engaged in some activities in the Eastern region. That's what I was informed about over his absence.
I see. So, Mr. Blay, I would like to go through quickly some of the points that were raised in this statement that was issued. Critical for me is the fact that you have more like the steering committee has instructed vetting committees to stick to the rule in eligibility and competence criteria. Why did this come up?
Well, it's a question of reinforcing it, because those who were sent around nationwide to go and supervise it, we thought maybe they might not have had the benefit of these points that we have raised in this our statement, that they must reinforce it, they must abide by it, they must ensure that these are enforced and observed. That's why we sent
So they're just reminders. They're just reminders to the vetting committees to stick by the rules.
Yes.
But the information we pick, Mr. Blay, does not suggest that we are told that we cannot confirm this though, but that we had information that the General Secretary had issued some waivers to some people who didn't have the money to meet the qualification criteria, and he issued waivers to them without recourse to the rest of the party, and for which reason the large majority of the executives were upset. Is that correct?
Well, these speculations, we've not had them confirmed. We've had in hand one or two petitions, but we are yet to confirm that there have been waivers and to some individuals and so forth and so on. We are yet to have those facts or those things that's been said confirmed.
Right. So is the flag bearer Nana Akufo-Addo privy to all of these developments? One, that Afoko did not attend this emergency steering committee meeting, Kwabena Japan did not attend, and there is another steering committee meeting scheduled for Thursday. Is Nana Addo happy with these developments as leader of the party?
I wish you will ask him, but let me emphasize. We had a meeting, as I told you, it's an emergency meeting. We earlier on asked that the chairman should convene the emergency meeting. Unfortunately, he never had the opportunity to do so. And therefore, constitutionally, I was mandated to have this, convene this emergency meeting. The issue as to Afoko didn't attend is that he was out. He couldn't be present at this meeting. He would have definitely presided over this meeting.
I see.
Chaired it. Okay. So that doesn't arise. The next question that you're asking is that, is he happy or not? Well, this is a constitutional matter. We are organizing a party, and a party, one or two people may be absent. It's not that always we'll be lucky to have all members present. We're going to discuss matters affecting the party, very important matters. Present is affecting what we are doing, more so in relation to the primaries that we are having.
Right.
And there is
Mr.
a
Blake,
need for emergency meeting.
Mr. Blake,
that's what we did.
Right. Mr. Blake, we're grateful for your time on today's Big Story. I'm afraid we have to move on with our discussions. And Kwachi Afre-Nneoma was at the event. Kwachi, you have been following all of this, and critical is the fact that Kwabena Japan did not attend this meeting. From the explanation Mr. Blake is giving us, he was out at a funeral here and there, and Afoko was in a meeting or had gone on a private visit to London. Did you gather from all that was happening that something was amiss?
Certainly, when I spoke to Mr. Kwabena Japan, that was around 3 p.m. Obviously, he had heard about this meeting because it had been reported on the midday news at 12. And his first reaction, and I quote, and indeed this followed a question I asked him about how his reaction to this entire controversy, which seems to buttress a certain perception that there is division within the ranks of the steering committee. He said, and I quote once again, that go and ask whoever organized this meeting. I am not aware of it. And he added that he, as the General Secretary of the NPP, when meetings of this nature are sanctioned by the National Chairman, Mr. Paul Afoko, or whoever is in office, he issues the circulars. But rather interestingly, he knew nothing about it at all. And from the way he sounded on phone when I spoke to him,
he was bitter.
Pretty upset, Stephen.
So does it mean that the vice chairman was not exactly accurate about the fact that Mr. Japan was invited via WhatsApp message?
Well, it's difficult to tell now, especially because we are hearing two sides of the story, but these are two sides in one political party,
one steering committee.
And this follows events last year, in August last year. I'm sure you remember that a controversial decision by Mr. Kwabena Japan to dismiss Deputy Communications Director Perry Okujeto and appoint some Deputy Communications Directors generated a lot of controversy. And at a press conference to address these issues, there was mayhem at the party's headquarters, some machete wielding.
That's right. I recall very clearly.
And this today's event seems to further deepen the perception that within the ranks of the steering committee of the NPP, there's a certain division.
Right, let me hold you quickly and go back onto the telephone line. Dr. Ali Seido is still there. Doc, we're grateful that you were patiently on the line. Now, you heard my discussion with Freddie Blay and querying why Kwabena Japan and Paul Afoko did not attend the steering committee meeting. The constitution of the NPP mandates that Paul Afoko is the one who calls such a meeting. He tells us that the Kwabena Japan, for example, was invited by WhatsApp message. Is this all right?
I think there is a lot going on that is not right. You see, since the election of this current crop of national executives, there has been a lot of disagreement and unplanned sort of attempted palace coup to the authority of this particular executive. Initially, the NPP dismissed it as just being perception, or their enemies are just trying to read meanings into what's going on in the party as not being what's the meaningful.
That's right.
But I think what is happening, or what happened today, is actually deepening the suspicion, because somebody like the national chairman and the national general secretary should be the important people that form the core of a steering committee meeting. And if such an important person of this caliber is invited through an SMS, and he is in the country, we can say that fine. Maybe Paul Afoko, the national chairman, is not in the country. That is why he was not attending. But what about the general secretary and the national women's organizer? It shows that something so either the decision that they wanted to take today, those two people would have opposed it, or they just didn't want them to be part of the decision that they're going to make. And I think it is very important. If I heard that a meeting has been slated, the same national committee meeting has been slated for Thursday, if it was a part that is well organized now in the opposition, today's emergency meeting wouldn't have been necessary if there was to be a similar meeting on Thursday. Because the difference between today and Thursday is not that much. It's not a decision that you're going to take today that needs to be enforced today. The decision that you arrive at today will be enforced even after next week. So I thought as a reason, as a well-organized opposition party, some of these things don't have to occur. It shows that you are not organized, you are not prepared as a party, government in waiting, and it speaks volumes of the voters, especially the floating voters, who will have reposed confidence in you to come in and solve some of the challenges that we're facing with regards to this particular government. If you are not well organized in opposition, then it shows what you do when you are in government. So I think what is happening now is not something that is good for the party. And the earlier they sit down and iron out their differences and build that element of unity and cohesion moving forward, it is really going to affect the operation.
So looking at 2016, I mean, there are a lot of party faithfuls who are just seeing this as a shot in the foot ahead of 2016. Do you think that the NPP is swimming into murky waters and perhaps making it a little more difficult to win the election as they wish?
As it stands now, if things don't change, it will be very difficult. You see, your ability to win elections is not only dependent on the ill performance of the party in power. The party in power may not be getting things right. The party in power may be facing a lot of challenges. But ideally, the same reasonable voters will not just vote them out because they are facing challenges or they are not doing well. But they also look at the credibility of the party that is in opposition. Is it a credible alternative to what we have now? So if the NPP think that the current energy crisis and then issues of corruption and then our economy is not doing well, and based on that, they have a clear chance to win the 2016 election, and they don't organize themselves well, it is going to be very difficult for them. Seriously speaking, I think they should sit down. We all know that it is not going well, especially the national chairman and then the national general secretary on one side and all the other executives on the other side. When they won election, the idea was that these two people were keenly behind, were in support of Alan Chamante's bid to lead the party. And all the other executives were in support of Akufo-Addo. And Akufo-Addo won. But the fact that they were perceived to have been supporting one particular side of the flag bearership way doesn't mean that they should be undermined, or they should rather undermine the authority of the other executive. They need to work collectively as a team.
They need to work collectively.
Without that element of team spirit and team engagement, it is going to be very difficult for them to organize work.
Dr. Ali, do they need to work collectively as a team? That's the only way forward? Or you think there are more things they should be considering doing if indeed they want to win 2016?
There are a lot, but that is the first. If you don't work together as a team, it will be very difficult for you to address the other emerging challenges. But if you come together and see yourself as one, you can overcome any challenge that comes your way. But once you have that division within the rank and file of the party, every small challenge is going to be a very big one for them because they are not united. There is not that element of unity and teamwork. But once they're able to work together as a team, big challenges will be very small for them.
Big challenges.
And they can easily conquer.
Right.
So uniting and working as a team is the first guarantee of success.
Right. Dr. Ali Seidu, we're grateful for your time on today's Big Story. Dr. Ali Seidu is a senior lecturer, political science lecturer at the University of Ghana here, Legon. So, Afraid, this has gotten to the point where political watchers say if nothing is done about the seeming split at the front of the party, this could be disastrous for the party. As you went snooping around for, the after meeting and gathering of information, were there key indicators you picked up which suggested that indeed there was a faction between the chairman, the general secretary, and the rest of the party?
That indication is clear. In fact, when I put the Mr. Kwame Japon's response, when I mentioned it to the likes of Mr. John Boadu, national organizer, Sami Oku, a national youth organizer, and Mr. Freddie Blay himself, immediately they couldn't reject the fact that that response was what was accurate. What it was,
right.
And later they denied it anyway. But you could see from their body language, the way they express themselves, clearly that there is some division within the NPP. And if you have been to the party headquarters, covered a number of events at the NPP's Asylum Down headquarters, on a number of these occasions when there's controversy, like we have now, like we had in August when there was a near bloodbath at the party headquarters.
Right.
You hear party supporters very disappointed, but much of the blame has been laid at the doorstep of General Secretary Kwabena Agyapong. Many think, and I'm sure you remember, before his election as General Secretary, there was this talk about having a certain agenda 2020, wanting Alan Kyerematen to Nana Akufo-Addo to lose in 2016, so Alan Kyerematen to.
Kwabena Agyapong have been seen as key Alan. Frontman, especially because Mr. Kwabena Agyapong himself at a point served as a campaign right-hand man of Alan Kyerematen. But moving forward, Mr. Kwabena Agyapong tells us additionally that tomorrow Mr. Paul Afoko will arrive in the country from the UK where he's on a private visit, and they will hold a crucial meeting on how to address this particular matter, because they will hold a meeting to address another matter internally.
They'll hold a meeting because the fact is that, as they've mentioned to us, they were not aware of this meeting. And meetings of this nature, as I mentioned earlier, under normal circumstances, should have the consent of the chairman. He should sanction these meetings. Even if he doesn't sanction the meeting, he should be aware. He's saying they are saying they weren't aware. So tomorrow when he arrives, Mr. Kwabena Agyapong says there'll be a meeting on this particular matter moving forward, how it should be addressed. Right,
we're grateful. So tomorrow there'll be another meeting to address another meeting which was held today at the NPP headquarters. The meeting was held at the headquarters in Accra. Exactly. Yeah, right. My name is Stephen Enti, and we're grateful that you could join us on today's big story. We'll be right back with Joy News Interactive.